everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday Times Roundtable. My name is Holly Morganelli. I am filling in for Eric Feldman, who is speaking out of town. I'm the Global Learning Librarian. I'll also be speaking at a Tuesday Times Roundtable in April. Okay, today we have Dr. Deoraj. Dr. Deoraj is a senior instructor and graduate program director in Environmental Health Sciences Department at the Stemple College of Public Health and Social Work. He obtained a PhD from the National Institute of Immunology, New Delhi, India. Dr. Deoraj has extensive research, teaching, and management experience in academic and industrial settings. Related to his research, Dr. Deoraj has published over 60 articles in peer-reviewed journals, magazines, books, and conference proceedings. He conducted his research on the influence of environmental factors on the neuroendocrine control of reproduction. His current interest in the public health area is to elucidate the effects of environmental stressors on the timing of the onset of puberty and adolescence, and how this can be a risk factor for chronic diseases, reproductive impairment, and cancer. So thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me well? Good afternoon. Everybody has food in their mouth? That's good. No problem. Well, as you heard, my name is Alok Deoraj, and I am in this department, Environmental Health Sciences in the Stemple College of Public Health. And if you haven't been to this building, this is the most beautiful building on the campus. Please come visit us. It's the AHC 5. Besides that, I don't know how many of you are aware, our college offers Masters in Public Health, PhD, as well as certificates. And if I can go to the next slide here. Masters in Public Health, PhD in Public Health, certificates, and from this fall 2018, we are also going to be launching our fully online Masters in Public Health. So anyone who is interested, please contact us. There are also some flyers over there, some more information about the scholarship and how to apply and all that. We admit fall as well as in spring. So please feel free to get the information, and if you want to contact me, please do so, and then we will be able to help you navigate through the admission process. If you want to write down, there are some information in there. So I'm going to, first of all, a disclaimer that I'm not an expert in the microbiome or the microbiology. This is an exciting area at the moment, and I find that it kind of mesh into my research, what I'm trying to do. So, and I want some interaction or any question or comments you have. This is supposed to be in the roundtable format, so I'll try to stop here and there and ask questions from you, and you can fill it into me as well, just in case you have some ideas to progress my research and something I would like to get from you. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to break down my talk into, first we will talk about what is adolescence and what is adolescence in health, global side also, the global burden of disease. What is microbiome? I know many of you or some of you might be knowing about microbiome, so we'll explain microbiome, its relevance, its importance, and then how it is established into the human body, where it is available, what is the distribution, what kind of a species are there into different body parts. But my focus again, soon it will be onto the gut microbiome. I will not be talking much more onto the different parts of the body where the microbes or the microbial things are there. So we'll talk about the global burden of adolescent health. I had been fortunate. I had one undergraduate student, I don't see here at the moment, it's Stephanie. So she helped me put together some graphs that what is the global burden of health in the adolescents and what is happening, and you'll see that. Functional role of gut microbiome. Microbiome as modifiable intervention, and summary as knowledge gap going forward. So having said that, my intention is not to be just giving lecture. I want to have much more interaction. So if I'm speaking too much, stop me, ask some questions. So this is the article. Based on that, today's topic we are going to be discussing, unlocking the secrets of the microbiome. I don't know how many of you had a chance to look at it. Please feel free, maybe just glance through, and when we talk, then we can touch on this, I guess. So going forward, how I got interested in this? Because as you heard in my introduction, that my interest, the research interest is into the environmental stressor and how it controls the reproductive maturation, reproductive processes. As you can see here, environmental stressors, chemicals, xenoestrogens, how that can go onto the brain centers for the neurotransmitters, kisspeptin, NPY, GABA, dopamine, neurosteroids. And then from the hypothalamic region, you have this gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is released, and that binds to its receptor on the pituitary. From the pituitary, we have the release of the luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, which acts onto the gonads, testis and ovary, for the release of testosterone and estrogen. My research interest is primarily onto the timing of the onset of the puberty. And why it is important is that that is when the timing of the onset of the puberty is extremely important in terms of going forward. That's when it can become a risk factor for the chronic diseases or in the cancer and all that in the long term. When the precocious puberty, you may have a delayed puberty, and then so that's my interest. So you see all these neurotransmitters and this hormonal pathway going forward. So all these have genes which there are transcription factors which interact with the environment, and they regulate at a precise timing when it has to be expressed, when it has to be, and that's when there is a pulsatile release of GnRH, and that's when the timing of the onset of puberty is decided. Microbiome is it's a new area of research at the moment, and it has been found that, we'll talk about this in a moment, that microbiome which resides into, or the microbial entities which resides in your gut, they secrete various kinds of enzymes, and they feed on to what you eat. And when you have that, the metabolites, many of them, which are some of the, they call it as a fatty acid, short chain fatty acids and all, they can also act as a neurotransmitter. And they can feed back, going to the brain barrier, and they can feed onto these brain centers, and they can also influence the timing of the onset of the puberty. That is why I got interested into this topic, microbiome. Any question here? Anything you want to know further here? Okay. So what is microbiome? And as you can see here, the microbiome, the human microbiome is the collective genome of microbial communities that live in and on us. It is just not the bacteria. It also includes fungi or any kind of, even maybe some protozoa. So all those entities which are microscopic, which live on our body, constitute the microbiome, right? And then you imagine these microbial communities are found on our skin and in our mouth, respiratory tracts, urinary tracts, and gut. Microbiota works symbiotically with our body to keep us from getting sick. How many of you knew about microbiome? You knew about microbiome. What do you know about microbiome? How do you think that it comes into existence?
Well, I knew more about like the intestinal just because I have family that has they have just intestinal problems, so like we're just on those microbiomes and like what you're probably gonna talk about, because I saw a video of people, like people fecal bacteria and like the transplant, or like putting that into like people and different things like that. So I don't know about that, but not like how like those like fall into.
Because does anyone know when it gets installed, or when it gets kind of programmed on your body? Where do you get it from?
From your mother?
Anybody else? Yes.
Just to piggyback on him, you also get it from the milk from the mother that breastfeeds you.
Because the child in the womb is more like a a very sterile condition. But right at the time of birth, that's the first inoculum of this microbiome you get at the time of birth. And there is a study which is going on. People have shown that the normal delivery or the normal birth situation has a totally different population of the microbiome on your body compared to the children who are born from the cesarean section. And that is the inoculum of the microbiome, which is set in, and then that's what becomes your core microbiome going forward. Now, that microbiome also has a many ramifications, where it is coming from, what mom during the pregnancy, because the microbiome can be changed, and this is what we'll be discussing about. That microbiome can be changed based on your food, based on your lifestyle, and all those kind of things. So, but that's the first inoculum you get. And the research is also showing that how that also determines your immune system going forward. And then combined with the breastfeeding, that together, now it is like, people are proposing about that, the breastfeeding, how it can strengthen the immune system, because that's where you get more exposed to the variety or the diversity in your microbiome is supposedly, from the research what is coming out, that is making your immune system much more strong going forward. But then one example is how do this through colonization resistance, meaning, for example, that microorganisms living on your intestine take up all the available nutrients and places for organisms to bind. So what it does is, one is that certainly the immune system, it builds up the immune system because it helps in the maturation of the immune system. Because the immune system gets exposed, they get a thymic education and all that, and from there, it gets much more education, and then their immune system is getting built. But at the same time, this is sentence what you have is that the microorganisms living in our intestine take up all the available nutrients. So what will happen? That if there is a pathogenic bacteria or something which attacks you, it is possible that they will not have enough nutrient going forward because you are colonized by your innate or your endogenous microbiome. Or they might even be helpful in fighting it out. So this is like, this was the trigger of my interest going forward. The gut-brain communication system, gut microbiota influences brain development and function, hosts behavior and cognition through hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal cortex development and stress responses. Stressful response experiences influence gastrointestinal conditions such as motility, blood flow, mucin production, iron secretion, and all that. And how, when you feel nervous, the gut feeling or the gut wrenching. And so all those things, your behavior is also being controlled by your microbiome. So you are what is your microbiome, basically. So it is also considered as an extra organ because that determines not only your makeup, how you react to the stress, how you respond to an environmental stress, or how would you behave. And there are many anecdotal things people say, you are what you eat, you are what is your microbe, you are like, so that's the kind of thing. So now there is some sort of research which is corroborating all these ideas. And still a lot more to go, a lot more to find out. And how they do that? Motility, blood flow, mucin production, iron secretion, and all those in microbiota. And there is a composition. And this is where my point here is that what is that composition? What is that composition which can determine either the right time of the onset of the puberty or it is an aberration into the timing of the puberty? So that is my question which I'm trying to pursue further, that what is that right kind of composition? How can you modulate? How can you modify that composition to keep you healthy, to have the right time of the onset of the puberty? Does anyone have any idea? What do you do to modulate the composition of the microbiota? Yes, go ahead. Diet. Environment. Yes, yes. Right. And all of the above, right? So yes, but the primary is the diet, what you eat. Because that is what kind of a food you are eating is going to determine the composition of the bacteria in your gut. And This is what is more interesting going forward. But at the same time, yes, even like when you are doing an exercise or your lifestyle, smoking, alcohol, all those things can also affect your microbiota. Not only that, from the childhood on, like the time you're born, the antibiotics had been a big problem because the antibiotics literally they disturb. Then this is what they call dysbiosis, where they disturb the established microbiome. It can recover, but then it may take a long time, or it may not even recover from what you had to begin with. So that's the point here, that it is modifiable, but at the same time, it is also very easily, it can be disturbed when you are stressed, when you had alcohol, when you had like smoking or your lifestyle changes. So those can also disturb your microbiome. Now, whether it's gonna be chronic stress, whether it's gonna be chronic problem leading to alcoholism, leading to smoking, leading to your lifestyle changes, and that is what can alter the microbiome what you have. Now, whether to begin with, whether you had a right kind of microbiome, it is still under investigation. That is also there. The question. Yes. Yes. In fact, there is in this paper itself, there in this paper or somewhere I had said that is also a modifiable behavior, like by which you can modulate your microbiome. The research is still on; it's not fully proven, but yes. And one of the greatest indication of the changes into microbiome, it sounds a little gross, but from the time you see the young child, the poop of the young child, the color and the smell of the poop going all the way to the adulthood, or all the way to the even elderly time. You are taking medicine, you are taking an antibiotic, you are taking, so you can see the changes what takes place. But to establish that particular, it may take longer time. But you can alter it, you can alter very quickly. So the child which is born, their microbiome composition is completely different, but the moment the child is exposed to the solid food, the moment the child is exposed to different kind of a food, the microbiome starts to change. Even I will bring another aspect to it, is that the people who have come to this country, or for that matter, have migrated to different other countries, when you start to live, your lifestyle or the food what you are taking changes, and that is also altering your microbiome. And this is also in this paper also it mentioned. So if you are having, like, from switching from high fiber diet to a high fat, high sugar diet, that is certainly going to change the microbiome of your gut. The diversity also is, you will lose when you have a much more of a high fat and high sugar content diet. And this is one of the studies I will show you. So as you can see, the gastrointestinal, urogenital, skin, nasal, oral. So this is just a group, all these different kind of a species. So what is found there, what is found there. So this is how it looks like. But then there are different species. I'm going to show you the genus is just categorized there. Any comment? One? Anybody? So here you see gut composition of microbiota. So this is this one was overall on the body. Gastrointestinal, urogenital, oral, skin, and nasal. But here you see the dominant microbial communities, actinobacteria, Bacteroidetes, Firmicutes, and then you have other microorganisms, Lactobacilli, Streptococci, Enterobacteria, and all that. So those are the dominant one. So the current research is showing that when that gets perturbed, that's when you start to have much more bigger problems, because that's more like a housekeeping. You have housekeeping gene, and there is some variation to the expressions and all that. So the Lactobacilli, Streptococci, and Enterobacteria is much more variable. So you have a system of the microbiome which maintains, like, which is the homeostasis, which conducts the homeostasis. And then there is a change in there when there is a change in the homeostasis. Not only this, there could be some variety of, so we have, I don't know, do you all know how many microbiome species we have on our body? Does anyone know? How many cells do we have in our body? I'm sorry?
Yes, in the trillion.
Anyone else?
75 trillion.
Sorry?
75 trillion.
75 trillion? Anybody else? Yes?
I'd say it's in the billions.
I'm sorry?
I'd say it's in the billions.
So on an average, we have 10 trillion cells on our body, in our body. And guess how many microbiome species are there? Hmm? How much more? Yes?
10,000 times what?
It's close to about 100 trillion. It's almost three times of your cells. So that means, so you are not you. It's your microbe is what you are. Okay, so it's 100 trillion cells. However, there has been some adjustment. Now people are bringing it down, like, they are saying it's a 2:1, or some people are saying 3:1, 2.5, just like a stock market, which is like, just now. So that is it. So you can see here, and so this can be changed, how you eat, how you behave, how you go about it. So those kind of things can happen, and that is going to determine your health outcome. Okay, so that's about the microbiome. Now, my question is that why are we interested in the adolescent health? I want to hear from you. Why should we study adolescent health? Yes?
Maybe that's when they're finalizing the diet.
Hmm?
That's when they're finalizing the diet for their lives, or what they
Yes?
That's the last stage before adulthood. So when you're in adolescence, you're preparing for the rest of your life.
Yes?
I would think the point of researching for adolescents would be a preventative measure, maybe something that we're doing now at adolescence to promote good health instead of when you go to something bad happens because of what you did in adolescence. Rather be exposed to thinking at a young age, but that's the culture, that's what sets you up for when you're adulthood, that's being your norm, and that obviously puts you on the down slope of what your life is.
Yeah, you are on the right track, and in fact, everyone is more or less on the right track. The point here is this is one of the most critical phase of your life. What has happened is that it seems like that we have focused more onto the chronic diseases. We have focused on the longevity. We are living longer now. And then we have focused on to under 5 children, like, the vaccinations and all that. And in between, what has happened is that it seems like the adolescent health has been overlooked. And you can see 1.2 billion adolescent population is there in the world. What does that mean is almost 1 in every 6 person is adolescent. Moreover, WHO defines adolescence is from 10 to 19 years of age. Okay? And they're not fully developed. They're not yet adult. Their brain is still developed. Neurons connections are still being made. And that's one of the fastest time they're learning. They're emotional, and like, the depression, the mental health is still developing. You start to distinguish what is good, bad, what you can do, what you cannot do. So all these combinations which is being made, and that is very, very critical time of your life, because that is what is going to be determined that whether how healthy you are going to be, whether you are going into the exercise, whether you are doing like, what kind of a diet you are going to be, whether you are going to be binge drinking or what you are going to do. So that's a very, very critical time. So that's the area which is still overlooked, and there is some realization. People have started to, come about, and a lot of effort is being made into addressing this issue. So tremendous physical, social, emotional, and cognitive growth and development impact upon lifelong health outcome. One is certainly at the time of birth, from the time the child is in the womb all the way to the first year. the amount of development happens, it never happens throughout the whole life. And then this is the another time when the development takes place at the fastest rate. So if the lifestyle is not good, if it is, so that is going to be determined, that is going to determine the chronic disease outcome or health outcome going forward. Because that's where the chances of probability of introducing errors into your gene duplication, the transcription, the regulation, all those things are much more higher. So that is why it is important. So we have been focusing on to the longevity, the quality of life is the next aging and all that, that is there. And then our focus was on the children and women's health at the earliest stages. But this important life stage had been somehow overlooked. That is why it is important to study about it and what can be done. This is how they think, okay? Because the brain is still developing. And so how, and it is also not, I mean, what has happened in the area of public health that social interventions and all that is not working because it try to tell a teenager to do something, right? It will just go into the opposite direction. So what can be done to modulate? So this is one of the opportunity or intervention opportunity, what is being seen as an opportunity so that no one can have, because this is also related to the behavior, what you are eating, how you are eating, and how you can modulate your this thing. So this is the work which was done by one of my undergraduate students, Stephanie. And as you can see here, interestingly, so you see the global, so it's the 10 top your risk factor or the global burden of adolescent health or the disease, 10 top, the global level, as you can see there, okay? And the data is from 1995 and 2016. So on the left-hand corner, you have the global. Western Europe, you can see the same. And then here you have North America and South Asia, all right? And you can see it's all of them are in top 10. But if you notice, in the top 10, majority are related to the behavior. Even for that matter, North America is striking, and it's a dramatic increase from the mental and substance use. Nowhere else. In fact, that doesn't even figure out in many of them. But still, you have interpersonal self-harm, violence, transport injuries. So those things are unintentional injuries. Those are in the top 10. So this is, and this is, the data is for 10 years to 24 years of age group. It is combined, male and female combined, but you can go even sort it out into male and female as well. So you have different regions of the world, high income North America, you have global, Western Europe, and South Asia. They're also in South Asia, you see the cardiovascular disease is there, but then you have transport injuries, which has jumped from 6th to 3rd place. So these are very much related to behavior. So what can we do to change the behavior? Of course, there are so many socioeconomic features and socioeconomic factors do play a role. The affluence of the countries are getting much more into the developing range, so they can afford something better. That's why they can have car and they can go and they can crash, right? So all those things are there, but those are all related to also behavior, right? So here you can see Sub-Saharan Africa and Western Sub-Saharan Africa. There also, mental disorders are also in the top 10. Okay? Unintentional injuries is still in top 10. Transport injuries is still like, stays at the 7th place. Now here, if you see, this is the lower one is the 2016 data. What you see here is the drugs and all this over here. You see such a big rectangle is there. Self-harm, violence, road injuries, drown, these are all behavioral. So these are the combinations of like, you have the communicable, non-communicable diseases and then the behavior and mental disorders. So you can see that's the global, and then here, in the global also you see, even if it's a HIV, that's like a behavioral thing, right? So violence, self-harm, so that's the major chunk which is affecting our adolescent group. So your question, any question, comments? And here, you can see this is for the chronic diseases. I'm still trying to find out. This was, I had gotten, I think in 2015. This is published by CDC. Every week they publish it, but it is little old data. But it's still what my point here is that as you can see, any chronic disease issue or any cancer or anything what you can have a health outcome, the poor diet is the one which determines 35% of time. Chemical is only 2%. Alcohol is 3%, but the poor diet. So what does that mean? That if we can improve our diet, in turn, possibly we will be able to even modulate our microbiome, which can in turn maybe change the behavior or which can in turn produce some of those metabolites which can be helpful, which can improve our immune system, which can improve our behavior, possibly. Still the research is being done. So as you can see here, factors which influence the composition of human gut microbiota with a special focus on diet. So here you can see diet, dietary pattern, specific foods, whole grain, foods constitutes, foods associated with, but then also that can be determined, like in the beginning you had mentioned the exercise, general lifestyle, host genetics, that's also endogenous factor. Everyone, it is very hard or it will be probably near to impossible that we can have an identical microbiome of 2%. Everyone has their own signature of the microbiome. It will be totally different from each one of them. So health, disease, medication, what you took at the earliest stages, what you are taking now, that is also going to determine the health outcome as well as your microbiome composition. Yes?
Do you know, are there any studies being done on twins?
I am not aware of, but I'm sure people must be interested in that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Any other question, comments you want to make? Yes.
Does this test have it also been looked into the infant? Because the reason I ask is because when you say that diet has a lot to do with it, unfortunately in America, and when we go out to eat to any restaurant, the notion of separating the child's menu to the adult menu kind of seems to, in my opinion, seems to contribute a lot to the children diet and then going into adolescence. So my personal opinion is I disagree with the study that, that it should be with the adolescents, but maybe also from the childhood, because that the diet is here, at least here in America, seems to be conditioned from the child's age. So when you go to like a McDonald's or any other type of restaurant, the child has the option of eating pizza or foods that's separate from what a human, which he is or she is a human. So I think those things also contribute to the fact that as we get into adolescence, we start making those poor choices, like you said, behavior, because it has been conditioned to us since we were young, depending on the society that we grew up in.
Any other comment? Her comment?
Anybody wants to make any comment on that?
Do you agree to that, what she said? That essentially you are developing a habit from the childhood, right? To eat that kind of a food. So how do you expect the child to develop a new habit going forward, right? Yes.
Well, I think that you made some valid points. Many times also during the adolescent years, once you go into the 10 to 19 years, people tend to change their diets due to body image, due to what's social pressure. So that's embodied becomes more of a bigger idea in terms of girls and guys, school guys or what's the appropriate way to dress. So that's also lots of things.
So that is also an important point. That so that is where it's a growth is still happening. Emotional, social interactions. You're like starting to delineate the whom to go with, whom not to go with, and all those kind of things. You are at that stage. and like you want to look bulky and all that, so that's when like you may start to have your diet change. But what is happening, whether it's going to be in the long term, and there is jury is still out. We don't know what is the best microbiome you can have in your system, which is going to determine, okay, you are going to be no problem all the way to the like deathbed or whatever is there. So that is there. So, but these are, as you can see, is the focus is on the diet, but you cannot deny the fact the general lifestyle. So there, like all your social thing can also come into play. Health, disease, like maybe if you have some issues with your health, allergic and all that, that can also determine the microbiome. Medication, if you are taking any medication, early colonization, when and how the bacteria has colonized. So all those things will be issue. And here, the functional role of microbiota. So what does it do once it is there inside the body? And as you can see here, the diet components, what do you eat? Dietary acid, amino, fibers, amino acids, vitamins, dietary acid, dietary fatty acids, additive, toxins, or antioxidants and phytochemical, all that. So that is going to determine the composition of your bacteria, right? And as you saw, what is there in your gut, the composition of that bacteria in the earlier slide which I had shown. So composition of and then those are the bacteria is going to be secreting various kind of enzymes which can be these the metabolites. What are those? Short chain fatty acids, carbon dioxide, H2S, methane, vitamin B's, metabolites exchange, ROS, oxidative stress level, tryptophan, metabolites, and then carbohydrate enzymes like to digest the carbohydrates. So these are which is being produced by the bacteria what you have in your body. And this is where like short chain fatty acids and all that can even penetrate through blood-brain barrier and then can the behavior and all that which gets changed. These are the what kind of a food you're eating that can also lead to the chronic inflammation, arthritis, or like the atherosclerosis or the cardiovascular disease. All those are cancer, cardiovascular. So how long, how much, what kind of diet you are eating, that is going to be determining like what kind of a composition you have, because that is what is going to be producing different kind of a metabolites. Does it make sense? Any question here? You seem puzzled.
No, I'm just thinking, because everything that you're explaining is kind of like moving forward, right? Like, as far as studies, do they see it moving back? Like, in the sense of new information is always key to making different decisions. But let's say, you see someone that's like anxious, or they correlate eating with that, so, that leads to that type of decision making. But do they have studies that they see like behaviorism going towards that? Like, does that make sense?
There are studies still on. People are even conducting some studies on the animals, the mouse and all that. They even like, what did they do is that they, they're germ-free mice. So they transplanted the feces of the obese mice, and then that mice started to eat more and they turned into obese, or just the vice versa, and then this becomes so that's what the point here is, that it seems like that the plasticity, or sorry, elasticity of this composition can be modulated to where you are going. But still, I'm saying that there is a lot of information. In fact, I have a study where Hadza tribe from Tanzania, and then they have studied 13, the groups, 13 or 18 groups. And what they found is that there is a seasonal variation into their microbiome. Not only that, the people, hunter-gatherers, they lived into wherever they were, so whatever they, so that is an indication that the food what you are eating on a seasonal basis, that is altering your microbiome. Same group of people, the people from the same group who have moved to the urban areas, their food habits have changed. You do not see that much of a seasonal variation. It's very static, more or less. Not only that, the diversity of the microbiome of the hunter-gatherers who live still into the jungle areas, there diversity is much, much more higher compared to the one who has migrated to the urban areas. I will give you another example. Some studies have shown, like, the Japanese people who have come to this country, there are some studies which was done. So they have lost the microbiome after a generation or two, which can digest the seaweed. So since after living here, your food diet has changed, and then you are not able to digest very well. And it happens, like the moment you are living here, go back to your country, wherever you are, the first 2-3 days, then you have upset stomach, right? You are losing the capacity to digest the food very well. So, but so these are the things which are indications. And as I had mentioned, this is just like, we have close to about 100 trillion bacteria. So if we have to, sequence all of them, this is how much it will take. So human is only 23,000 genes, but what you have to be, I am really awed with the fact that basically, and they have lived with us since we came from wherever, right? And they are modulating, they are changing. They are the ones who are the first responder to our changing environment, whether we came out of the cave or from the ocean, wherever. So they are the first responders, basically. And there is a very close interaction. Why do we have, even in our human genome, you will notice there is many, like some of the proteins, some of the enzymes, what is there in the bacteria, the sequence is the same what is there in the bacteria. So there is an interchange, the lateral transfer of the genes have also taken place. So here, variable, so the bottom line is that this is variable, the microbiome is variable. You can change it, you can modulate it. This is what it looks like. And this is the diagram from the National Microbiome Project from NIH. And you can see what it says is that the core human microbiome, what you can get from your mom, so that is going to be there, but there is a variation you can have, and how it can vary. Transient community members, host environment, host pathophysiology, host lifestyle, host genotype, host physiology, host immune system, all those things can determine, and they will have interaction with your core microbiome. But those are the ones which are variable much more, and those can be even wiped out, like during the cancer treatment, during the antibiotic courses. Those can be even wiped out. And that is why you may have heard about, there is one opportunity where people are trying to do the fecal transplants. So where from the healthy people, and there had been some, I'm forgetting the first one, difficulty, there is a disease, the bowel syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome. To treat that, people are trying all kinds of things, it's not working. But from the healthy person, if you transplant the feces, so that's when you can recolonizing with the healthy microbiome. But still, it hasn't been approved by the FDA. I think it also mentions in this one here, I believe, in the paper at the end. So the point here is that this can be variable. It can be made variable, and then there is a chance. So they are a microbial mirror of the changing world, and because they can evolve so quickly, they help our bodies respond to changes in our environment. That make sense? Because they are all over on our body. And certainly, how do you get exposed to the environment? 3 ways: ingestion, inhalation, or by touching things, right, from the skin, correct? So ingestion is one of the most powerful ones. Certainly inhalation and all that, but those things can also alter, those things can also help modulate the microbiome what you have. That is why you get flu, right? So these are some of the recent research, communication between gastrointestinal bacteria and the nervous system. There is this one, contribution of that to the composition of the human gut microbacteria, and the other studies which I was talking about, the gut microbiome of the Hadza hunter-gatherers. And there are many of them. There are so many studies. In fact, this is one of the, at the moment, this is one of the very, very hot area of research. Question, comments? Yes.
Is it a very hot topic because it may correlate to the outburst of the most dominant diseases?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Like, is it a very hot topic because it's related to the diseases, like, colon cancer or not necessarily.
Still, I mean, it's not yet fully formed, and that is why it is also a hot area of research, where you can correlate it with. Because this allows, in fact, it is changing the fundamental thinking of how you treat people. You understand? Because the earlier it was you identify a disease, treat it, kill it, and then you are done, right? But you did not see that how many other things of the side effects was like, you know, it's being coming in life. But here it will be in a different way. The different way is thinking in the medicine is that you are boosting your own or microenvironment in order to suppress anything which is not keeping you healthy. That's the way you are thinking. So you are creating a microenvironment which is powerful enough to suppress what is making you sick. So, but since the advent of the antibiotics, the mindset has changed that, okay, you have a disease, take this pill, or take this thing. Okay, kill, okay, now you're done. But then what it did, or all the medicines, the side effects, all those things, that was little consideration. But it is not that, you know, that is not right. We have to go hand in hand. But this is also one other opportunity for intervention, right? In order to keep us healthy going, maybe with the behavior and all that. And so all those kind of things which is make, yes?
I love coffee. Could that maybe negatively affect your microbiome?
Can't tell you. Because I took coffee too. But again, like, you know, it's, you have to look the literature yourself. I haven't looked in particular that what does the coffee do to your microbiome, but I'm sure the caffeine and all that, maybe transiently, it may be modifying again, you are going back to it, but like, let's say you're taking 10 cups of coffee, that may happen, right? Yes, you.
I'm sorry, can you please?
Were you able to study any specific diets, like vegetarian diets?
It does say in the article also that you have to move towards the vegetarian. I am not the one to tell you what needs to be done. You have to find your answers yourself, because there are certain things which you have to have something from your, like, you know, non-vegetarian diet or the vegetarian diet. But how do you make a balance? So that is the point. Yes, I'm sorry.
So like the research doesn't mostly point towards a plant-based diet?
Yeah, at the moment it seems like there's a trending towards it. Okay, you have to, the point here is, to me it looks like that you have to add diversity to your food. That's what my thinking is, that you have to add the diversity to the food. It's not just like, you know, you eat only same kind of food. And of course, like, you know, the high fat, high sugar diet, you have to kind of, but again, I'm not the one, I'm not a dietitian, but yes, you can modulate your microbiome. Yes?
I've heard that foods, ingesting foods with GMOs is like a cause of like earlier like puberty. Is that true?
It's a very, again, it's not proven yet. The point here is all these things, that the things which are happening in the society, it doesn't have much life, in the sense that we are only considering things which we are seeing in the 10 years, 5 years, 6 years. We do not have a history of 50 years of a study. We do not have a history of a generational study, right? So how can you pinpoint that, okay, this is what is going to work for you? And this is the research question. Can you have some method, can you have a system developed by which in a short period of time you can address some of these issues? Yes, maybe like, you know, zebrafish or mouse and all, which are like, you know, in 2.5 months or 3 months they become adult. So you can say that, okay, you can check like in 10 generations in 5 years you have this study. But whether that can also be applied to the human beings? Those are the questions one has to ask going forward. Because what, like, you know, the generation, we do not have a time-tested work. But yes, there are lots of things which is happening. So what you do, you not only go in one direction, you try to validate it from different points of view, different angles, consortium of techniques, consortium of, you know, things you have to take into consideration. Yes?
Let's say that hypothetically, after a generation of research, we finally pinpointed the right like correlation between microbiomes and how it affects us. Like, what do you believe in the future, how we could use that information, how that would affect us going into like that future generation, going them into the future?
That's also a very good point, because this is, I'm talking about only at this particular age. Try telling any teenager to do something at this age. They are going to run away into the totally different way, right? Even if you're, okay, this is what you should eat, they will eat something else, right? But the idea here is that this is an interventional opportunity. This seems to be an idea going forward, which can help possibly. So this is another step will be, okay, now we have found out how we can implement it. Whether can we change the diet and lunch plan in all the school system? Can we tell the restaurants not to have the child's meal separately, children's meal separately? So those becomes, once you have something, and this is like, great public health topic, that once you have something, then you develop policies, then you develop laws, and then you try to enforce it, then you check it, who is complying, who is not. So that becomes a public health issue going forward. And then you see the outcome. Okay, you have developed a plan that, okay, all these schools, wherever the lunch is, this is what the, the regulated food each child should have, because they fall into this kind of a category. Then after 5 years or so, you come back and say whether the child has, obesity has increased, or there is something behavioral change has happened, their exam scores have gone up. So all this time, so you can come up with the instrument to check all that. So the first thing is that we do not have anything available at the moment, right? Question? Okay, I'm almost done. So this is where my pursuit is. This is what I want to know. What can be a signature composition of microbiome at adolescence to reduce health burden at adolescence, or going forward, actually, burden at adolescence and going forward. So this is my pursuit. This is what I want to know. What is that signature composition? And this was very much segue from your question. And will that be good for you, all of you? We don't know yet, right? So I have put together something that I find, or I think, are the gap in the knowledge. As we discussed many of the things, and I say, I don't know. Dysbiosis, dysregulation of enteric microbiota and association with pathophysiology. We don't even know that when there is a dysbiosis, when there is an aberration into your microbiome, what it leads to. Still, it is not clear. Somebody asked about the colon cancer. Somebody may say, okay, atherosclerosis. Somebody might say arthritis. It is possible, but there is no clear connection as yet determined. Adolescence, timing of the puberty as in a window of opportunity for intervention as learning and adaptation, because that is the time when the child also learn, the faster learning time also at the same time. That's the age group. And they also adapt also very quickly. Once you are set, after 25, 30, you ask anyone to change anything, they're not going to change. If you ask me to change my coffee drinking habit, I may not want to do that. But that is the time, that is a window of period when you can ask them for some behavioral change, something which can determine their life going forward. Does it make sense? Any question here? Okay, the third one is microbiome as modifiable target for intervention for behavioral disorders to prevent chronic health outcomes. So again, it comes down to the first topic is that we can modify it. That seems to be happening. We can modify it from our food, from habits, whatnot. But whether it is going to actually help, whether it's going to translate into your behavioral change, that is yet to be seen. Question? Comments? Anything else you think that you would want to know from this kind of a research? Or you think that that could be the gap in the knowledge?
Yes, other probiotics help the microbiome. With the right, sort of medicines, they claim that they can help the microbiome, but find some of them to be found.
Yeah, so that's what you have to be careful. That's what my point is. Yes, I mean, that is possible. If it falls into those categories where it is going to be helping into the metabolizing or the producing certain metabolites, which is going to help in the modulating like your behavior or your health, yes, sure, why not? But you have to be careful what you are taking. You have to find out before you take it. But yes, the probiotics is also into the similar category. The probiotics means itself that it is going to be affecting your microbiome. Like, you take yogurt and those kind of things which to populate your gut with the lactobacilli and those things. People say that once you have antibiotic, you should take yogurt, right? Any other comment, question? Yes.
One of the ways the microbiomes can be affected is by location, right? By your environment. Do you believe that if once we see that the environment, or like what kind of environment, like optimal, like do you believe that that will like result in like a hypothetical mass migration, or that will like draw like more racial divide depending on who gets to choose to live in a certain location versus who gets to live in the undesirable location that affects the microbiome?
These are all very pertinent public health questions, because this is where like health equity and all those things which comes into play. And my thinking would be is that is again, it's a policy issue, and it shouldn't, like right now, forget about the microbiome thing. Like people live into an area in the food desert area. They can't even afford, they can't even go to a store to get a healthy food. Or if you have to drive 20 miles. And those are already, those issues are there. So what you eat then, right? So similarly, but once, the point here is that once we have some idea, then these things will come into play. Okay, the microbiome is stored right at the corner, wherever you go pick up, and then like, you are done, like good, right? But that microbiome is stored, is it there, like, or you have to drive 200 miles? So 3 things you have to consider, and I think my students would know. 3 things. First of all, whether it's available, anything, whatever intervention you are going to do, whether it's available, whether it's accessible, whether it is accessible or not, and then the third thing will be affordable, right? So you come up with any intervention. First of all, the intervention is available. Second is whether it's accessible. Like, we can have all kind of clinics and everything, but is it accessible? Can you go there? If it's only in New York or Los Angeles, you cannot go to have it, so it's not accessible to you. And then the third thing is affordable. If it is too expensive, the expense itself will be forbidding, right? All right, that's it. Any other comment, final comment? Questions? And feel free to pick up some of the information about our college, which is over there. And then we have some student ambassador like Christian or somebody else. If you want to work with microbiome or like in anything with the public health related, please catch him. There is one over there. So anybody, please, help us. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Produced by Academic Video Services within the Division of Information Technology at Florida International University.